Wow, this one is a doozy. You might have heard about this lawsuit. It's pretty shocking. We're talking about major allegations against two huge names in music, Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, it's definitely a case that has a lot of people talking.
For sure. And our deep dive today is based on an NBC News article. It lays out the details of this civil lawsuit, just one perspective, of course. But we're going to try to unpack these allegations for you, try to understand the context, and see what this all might mean going forward.
Yeah, I think it's important to approach this with a clear head. We're not here to take sides or tell you what to think, just laying out the information, letting you draw your own conclusions.
Exactly. Now, this case is especially attention-grabbing because the accuser was only 13 years old when this allegedly happened, way back in 2000.
Yeah.
And get this, it all supposedly went down at an MTV Video Music Awards after-party. You've also got an unnamed female celebrity mentioned as a witness. So there's a whole layer of Hollywood intrigue here.
Yeah, it definitely raises questions about what was considered acceptable behavior back then, especially in an environment like that. Has the music industry changed enough since then? I guess we'll have to see.
Okay, let's break down this lawsuit. The accuser, who is going by Jane Doe to protect her identity, is claiming that both Jay-Z and Diddy raped her at a house party after the VMAs.
And it's important to be clear on the legal terms here. This is a civil lawsuit, not a criminal case. So she's not trying to put them in jail.
Yeah.
She's seeking financial damages for what she alleges happened.
Got it. So what's the difference in how they have to prove the case?
Well, in a criminal case, they need to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a civil case, it's more about proving it's more likely than not that something happened.
Makes sense. Now, this lawsuit was filed by attorney Tony Busby, and he's been busy. He's filed several other lawsuits against Diddy recently, all from anonymous accusers.
Yeah, that's a pattern that's hard to ignore, even though Diddy has denied all the accusations against him.
Right, and Jay-Z has also denied all the accusations.
And we have to mention that Diddy's got other legal problems on his plate. He's actually in jail right now, facing criminal charges totally separate from this lawsuit. We're talking racketeering, sex trafficking, pretty serious stuff.
Wow. Okay, so back to this lawsuit. The story it tells is pretty disturbing. According to the lawsuit, the accuser was 13 years old and got dropped off at the VMAs by a friend. She didn't even have a ticket. She just started talking to limousine drivers, hoping to get into the show or an after party.
It really makes you think about how vulnerable a young girl would be in that situation.
Totally. And here's where it gets even creepier. The lawsuit says one of the drivers told her he worked for Diddy and that she fit what Diddy was looking for. He invited her to a party later and told her to meet him back at the car.
If that's true, it's a huge red flag. It sounds like potential grooming behavior, taking advantage of her age and the situation.
Later that night, the driver took her to a white house with a U-shaped driveway for the party. The lawsuit says she was told to sign something. She thought it was a non-disclosure agreement, but she never got a copy.
Whoa, an NDA. That's really interesting. It makes you wonder, were they trying to silence potential victims and cover things up? It definitely raises some questions about the practices in the industry back then.
Inside the party, there were reportedly tons of celebrities and people using drugs. She was offered a drink that made her feel dizzy and lightheaded. The lawsuit says she felt like she needed to lie down,
Setting the scene for what allegedly happened next.
so she went to lie down in a room. And according to the lawsuit, that's when the alleged assault took place. It paints a horrifying picture. She claims Jay-Z took off her clothes, held her down, and raped her while Diddy and this unnamed female celebrity watched.
Again, we have to be careful and say these are allegations. Both Jay-Z and Diddy deny everything. But if true, this is just horrific.
And it gets worse. The lawsuit goes on to say that then Diddy allegedly raped her while Jay-Z and the other woman watched. She claims she tried to resist performing oral sex on Diddy by hitting him in the neck. And that's when he finally stopped.
Ugh, it's just awful to even imagine.
The lawsuit says that after the alleged assault, she grabbed her clothes and got out of there. She called her father from a gas station.
It's hard to comprehend what she must have been going through.
This lawsuit is seeking unspecified damages, and it's filed under New York's Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act. So far, Jay-Z's lawyer and publicist haven't commented, and neither have Diddy's representatives.
This case is just getting started. It'll be interesting to see how Jay-Z and Diddy's legal teams respond to all this. What kind of evidence will be presented? What will their defense be?
And you have to wonder, What kind of impact will this have on their careers? I mean, these guys are icons.
Their image is everything. This could change how people see them forever. Think about all the brands they're associated with, the music they make, their influence on the culture. The potential fallout is huge.
Absolutely. And we're just scratching the surface here. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the possible consequences for Jay-Z and Diddy, and what this case might mean for the music industry as a whole.
Think about the impact this is already having.
Yeah, like that deal Diddy lost.
Exactly. Diageo, the company behind De Leon Tequila, they dropped Diddy like a hot potato as soon as this lawsuit hit the news. They said the allegations were just too serious to ignore, no matter what the outcome might be.
It makes you realize how much their reputation is tied to their business ventures.
Absolutely. And we could see a domino effect here. More brands and partners might distance themselves from both Jay-Z and Diddy as this case moves forward. Nobody wants to be associated with this kind of scandal.
But it's not just about the money, right? What about their creative legacy, their music, their place in hip-hop history?
That's a really interesting question. Can fans separate the art from the artist in a case like this? Will people still listen to their music the same way? Will their impact on the culture be diminished?
Especially with the #MeToo movement changing the landscape. There's definitely more awareness and a stronger demand for accountability these days.
You're right. The #MeToo movement has emboldened survivors to come forward, and it's made society take these allegations much more seriously.
It's not just about individual cases anymore. It's about tackling the systemic issues, the power imbalances that have allowed this kind of behavior to go unchecked for so long.
Absolutely. The music industry, like many others, has a history of protecting powerful men and silencing victims. This case, and others like it, could be a real turning point, forcing the industry to confront its past and make real changes.
So zooming out a bit, what does this whole situation say about society as a whole?
It's a harsh reminder that sexual assault is a widespread problem, and sadly, the legal system doesn't always provide justice for survivors.
The fact that this involves such high-profile figures makes it even more significant. It shows that no one is above the law. Accountability has to apply to everyone, regardless of wealth or fame.
Yeah, it's crucial to have these conversations with sensitivity and an open mind. We have to listen to all sides and avoid jumping to conclusions. Let the legal process play out.
But we can't shy away from the hard questions either. What's the responsibility of people in positions of power? How do we create a safer environment in the music industry? And everywhere else, for that matter.
It's not enough to just acknowledge the problem. We need to take action. We need to build a culture where this kind of behavior is simply not tolerated, where everyone feels safe and respected, and where survivors feel empowered to speak up.
This case reminds us that power and influence should never be used to exploit or hurt others. It's a call to action for all of us to stand up for what's right and demand accountability from those in positions of authority.
It's also a reminder that achieving justice can be a long and difficult process, but it's a fight worth having, both for the individuals involved and for the health of our society as a whole.
Heavy stuff. This deep dive has been intense, and it's clear this story is far from over. There are still so many unanswered questions. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, these are people we've listened to, admired even, and now this...
Yeah. It's definitely a lot to process, and it's crucial to remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Jay-Z and Diddy deserve a fair chance to defend themselves. That's how our legal system works.
Right, we're not here to judge. But this case raises some big questions, especially about how we hold people accountable, particularly in industries like music, where there's so much power concentrated at the top.
It really highlights how wealth, fame, and influence shouldn't be a shield. Everyone should be held to the same standards. And justice can be a long, complicated road. It's important to let that process unfold without jumping to conclusions.
So what can we do as individuals? How do we even approach this kind of information and these allegations?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed, to really engage in these conversations, listen to different perspectives, be willing to have your own views challenged, and of course, support survivors of sexual assault, and work towards creating a system that protects them and holds abusers accountable.
It's bigger than just the music industry, isn't it? It's about making sure everyone feels safe and respected, no matter where they are, making sure that power isn't abused.
Exactly. This case is like a lens. It focuses on these issues. But they exist everywhere. It's a wake-up call for all of us to be more aware, more empathetic, and ready to take action.
This deep dive has been pretty heavy, and this story is far from over. It feels like this could have a ripple effect for a long time to come.
Yeah, it's a complex situation. That could lead to some major shifts. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on how things develop.
And we'll be sure to bring you updates and insights as the story unfolds. In the meantime, we'll leave you with this. How do you think this case will ultimately change the music industry and the conversation around power, accountability, and justice? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.